The magic of Middle-earth is often misunderstood, and not without reason. A common reaction to Gandalf fighting the Balrog in the Fellowship of the Ring, and him saying, "You shall not pass," is, I have no idea what Gandalf just said, but it looked extremely powerful. Furthermore, the comparison to other magical universes comes up, as do the power levels between Middle-earth and these other magical systems. However, when properly understood, not only are the wizards of Middle-earth so incomprehensibly powerful, especially to say, compared to the magical world of Harry Potter, but their magic also runs deeper in my opinion and is far more beautiful. The secret fire is the source of the overall deity Eru Iluvatar's power, though importantly, it involves the power to create life. Under Eru, there were the Valar and the Maiar, two categories of spirits that have existed since the beginning of time. Both were great in power, but the Valar held the mastery under Eru. After the fashioning of the world and a great deal of history within Middle-earth and Arda itself, and more specifically, Ea, the wizards of Middle-earth arrived. They were Maya, but in the form of old men. So essentially Gandalf and the other wizards are lesser gods, but still of extreme power. So why then do they not shoot fireball spells and say Expelliarmus and do other, what I would call, loud, flashy magic? The magic of Middle-earth does not rely on magic spells. It requires only a being of power to say from on high what is. The easiest way to conceptualize this is the comparison to the Bible. The Lord said, "Let there be light," and there was. This is the same style of quote-unquote magic as in Middle-earth. When Gandalf says, "Saruman, your staff is broken," he is not casting a magic spell that breaks staves. Furthermore, he's not in a magic spell fight with Saruman. In fact, he's not even casting a magic spell. He is using his deistic power to declare the nature of the world as though it were still being created, and as though he had the authority to shape it. Because in a way, he did, and it was. Unlike the Valar, Gandalf was not so powerful as to raise mountains or carve valleys at this time in Middle-earth's history, but he could still do great deeds. And furthermore, the Balrogs were all Maiar as well, therefore gods that sided with the Dark Lord Melkor long ago. Therefore, when Gandalf faces the Balrog in the mines of Moria on the bridge of Khazad-dûm, he identifies himself as one of the Maiar, a servant of the flame imperishable as well, the secret fire, and wielder of the flame of Anor, the fire of the sun. When at last the demon steps on the bridge, he says, and smites the ground, and the Balrog falls with a portion of the bridge. When Gandalf said that the Balrog shall not pass, he was not casting a magic spell. He was declaring a new law of the universe. Ea, the world that is. Think of it as a law of physics that had no scientific origin. A fundamental law of Middle-earth was that the Balrog would not pass. Perhaps ever, perhaps just in that one moment. Doubtless Gandalf knew not the full extent of his own decree. When he said, "You shall not pass," and smote the ground, he wove a high doom on himself and the rest of the world, and neither he nor the Balrog knew the full extent of those words, as neither's foresight was omniscient. But all the same, he had the power and the authority to decree, and he decreed, "You shall not pass," in the same way as a god in a religion might say, "Let there be light." Remember, too, that the Balrog was a Maya as well, and being of the same race was of similar might to Gandalf, making the spells casting, or rather, the decrees casting, far more powerful. To further drive home the point, I'll leave you with a paragraph in the book, rather a few paragraphs from the Fellowship of the Ring. Listen now to this battle between Gandalf and the Balrog, but with the idea of deistic power and a declaration of laws as foundations of the world as a source of that power. Quote, "The Balrog reached the bridge. Gandalf stood in the middle of the span, leaning on the staff in his left hand, but in his other hand Glamdring gleamed, cold and white. His enemy halted again, facing him, and the shadow about it reached out like two vast wings. It raised the whip, and the thongs whined and cracked. Fire came from its nostrils, but Gandalf stood firm. "You cannot pass," he said. The orc stood still, and a dead silence fell. "I am a servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Anor. You cannot pass. The dark fire will not avail you, flame of Udun. Go back to the shadow. You cannot pass." The Balrog made no answer. The fire in it seemed to die, but the darkness grew. It stepped forward slowly onto the bridge, and suddenly it drew itself up to a great height, and its wings were spread from wall to wall, but still Gandalf could be seen, glimmering in the gloom. He seemed small and altogether alone, gray and bent like a wizened tree before the onset of a storm. From out of the shadow a red sword leaped, flaming. Glamdring glittered white in answer. There was a ringing clash and a stab of white fire. The Balrog fell back, and its sword flew up in molten fragments. The wizard swayed on the bridge, stepped back a pace, and then stood again. "You cannot pass," he said. With a bound, the Balrog leaped full upon the bridge. Its whip whirled and hissed. "He cannot stand alone," cried Aragorn suddenly, and ran back along the bridge. "Elendil," he shouted, "I am with you, Gandalf." "Gondor," cried Boromir, and leaped after him. At that moment Gandalf lifted his staff, and crying aloud he smote the bridge before him. The staff broke asunder and fell from his hand. A blinding sheet of white flame sprang up. The bridge cracked. Right at the Balrog's feet it broke, and the stone upon which it stood crashed into the gulf, while the rest remained, poised, quivering like a tongue of rock thrust out into emptiness. With a terrible cry, the Balrog fell forward, and its shadow plunged down and vanished. But even as it fell, it swung its whip, and the thongs lashed and curled about the wizard's knees, dragging him to the brink. He staggered and fell, grasped vainly at the stone, and slid into the abyss. "Fly, you fools!" he cried, and was gone. So there you have it, my interpretation of the magic of Middle-earth. I thank you all for watching. If you did enjoy this video, please do leave it a like and subscribe, as it helps immensely. Have a great rest of your day. Toodaloo.